Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the video. It is the continuation of the Steam Summer Sale, also known as our Happy Fun Time. There's actually quite a few good games available today, so without further ado, we're gonna begin. So, Dead or Alive, the last round. This is Dead or Alive 5, available for 50% off, $19.99, that's US dollars. I would personally recommend not so much. It's a one-on-one fighting game, blah blah blah. I don't really need to tell you that. I wouldn't bother because the PC port is missing quite a bit of stuff. If you really want to get it, and it makes me sad to say it, buy it on the consoles. It's an okay fighting game. Never really been that much into DOA myself. If you're really desperate for it, I guess you could go ahead and pick it up since it's like $20. But to be totally honest with you, I would probably not go ahead and buy this one if I'm totally honest. Next one is Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1. That's a bit of a name, isn't it? This is a turn-based action RPG with some humour. It breaks the fourth wall a lot, and it obviously is a little bit of self-aware, that type of thing. Not really played it myself, but two things are going for it. One, there's a massive amount of positive reviews, a overwhelming amount according to Steam. Second thing is you basically can run it on a toaster oven. So I guess if you're like, hey, I want something to play on like a low-end system, you could go ahead and pick this one up. Anyway, you've also got Galactic Civilizations. So this is a franchise available. It's 25 to 75% off, depending on which title you want to go ahead and purchase. Obviously, the newer one, which is Civilizations 3, it's going to go ahead and cost you 25% off. And then you obviously got the older titles, which are considerably cheaper. So obviously, your mileage may vary. I would guess at a rough shoot in the dark, you might as well go ahead and pick up Galactic Civilization 3. It's pretty much what you'd expect. It's a sandbox. You start out with a single world, then you start gathering and expanding your empire. It's a little bit like, say, Sins of the Solar Empire, but obviously slightly different in terms of the gameplay. This is not, once again, an easy title. It's obviously made by Stardock, so I don't really need to explain that. It's a four-time strategy title, so you do have to bear that in mind, whether it's your type of strategy sim or not. It's effectively more of a sandbox than anything. Is it my thing? No. Is it your thing? Well, maybe. I mean, it's not a bad game. I'm trying to blast through these as quickly as possible, as you might have probably noticed. So, Resident Evil, Dead Rising. There's a multitude of different ones, including Dead Rising 3, Dead Rising 2, the first one, and so on. Actually, no, Dead Rising 1 is not there. I'll apparently have to eat humble pie. Anyway, you can also pick up the franchise pack. To be totally honest, there was a lot of bitching about Dead Rising 3 when it was first released on the PC. There have been some patches which improved the performance and so on. Would I buy it? Well, if you're interested in effectively a sandbox, a single player, it does have co-op before anyone says it, but I mostly play it for the single player. If you're interested in a title which doesn't really take itself too seriously, if you're interested in kind of like another zombie apocalypse game, you could go ahead and pick it up. It's fairly cheap for the price. Is it brilliant? No, not really. I have problems with Dead Rising. I think it can be a little meh. But, you know, you could go ahead and try it. It's not a bad game. It's just not... I've never really thought that Dead Rising is astounding. I had problems with the original as well, with the time limit. It really pissed me off. But, you know, you might like it. Project Zomboid. I know very little about this. I know that it reviews fairly well. But there's a demo, so why should I speak? Just go ahead and pick it up. I mean, the demo. Crusader Kings 2. It also has a demo, and it's also a strategy, of course. It advertises itself as being created by and crafted by the Grandmasters of Strategy. I guess you'll have to take their word for it. Then again, it is Paradox, so you can say they do have a good lineage. The basic plan here is you can pick a different point in time between 1066 all the way up to 1337, that's a nice interesting number, and you could play theoretically until the year 1453. Effectively, you will want to play as a Christian and basically have a lineage, build up your domain, and basically, well, spread an empire. Now, these type of games aren't really for me. Obviously, this does have some fairly dated, to be totally honest, graphics. There is a demo of it. I'd recommend picking it up, simply because, you might like it, you might not like it. It's one of those games. Next one, Lord of the Fallen, or Lords of the Fallen, to be actually accurate. 60% off, which makes it 12 Great British Pounds. What is there to say about this one? I guess you could kind of say it's a bit like Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls, whatever, but the mechanics are just not as good. There were some major problems, particularly with the story. The storyline is a bit There are a couple of technical bugs, but they're not awful. There have been patches, from what I understand, which help. Whether you want to pick this one up, here's what I'd suggest. If you're a big fan of action RPGs, if you're a big fan of Dark Souls, of Bloodborne, of those games, I'm not going to give you the list because, you know, you'll be here till Christmas. And you think, you know what, I need another game like this. Why not? Go for it. If, however, you've got other games to play in the meanwhile, I would say give it a rest. You know, this, as I said, it's inspired by Dark Souls without a doubt, but it doesn't quite capture Dark Souls. The storyline, the world, just isn't quite as good. It's not a bad game, and I know I might be coming across like, oh, it's a blatant rip-off, that's it. It's not. It's a fairly good game. It's just not as strong as the others. Next one, Shadowrun. There's a bucket load of these games, including Hong Kong, which is going to be released in summer 2015, with no specific date. You've got Shadowrun Dragonfall Director's Cut and Shadowrun Returns. And honestly say that these games have not particularly appealed to me. There are, of course, a RPG experience. Generally speaking, this is more of a tactical RPG. It has a fairly in-depth storyline, so if you're just kind of thinking you're just going to chill out and relax and play, then that's definitely something to remember. It fortunately doesn't require a particularly beefy system to run as well, which is definitely a good thing. There are some pacing problems, and combat, I guess you could say, has been, I wouldn't say inspired by, but it has some element. Let's say the best game I can think of, I suppose, is XCOM, Enemy Unknown. But as I said, generally the characters, the squad mates, your friends, your buddies, they're all fairly reasonable on here. It kind of depends on your perspective. If you're interested in a futuristic / magic based RPG and you don't mind putting in a little bit of work, you don't mind having to do quite a lot of learning, you're not going to be quite in the level of Mass Effect with their personal stories of your squad mates, for example. And there is quite a lot of gameplay here. It's not going to give you like 200 hours. But, you know, for the price, you could go ahead and pick it up. I would recommend getting Dragonfall Director's Cut, if that's your thing. The Long Dark. I haven't actually played this one personally, but it's basically a exploration survival horror. It scores fairly well, so maybe you should go ahead and do a little bit of researching. If I remember correctly, Amy on this channel, she was quite interested in it. She's very interested in these type of games. I can't really say too much about it. It is early access, however. There is Bioshock franchise. You can actually get a ridiculous, you notice I'm going to say ridiculous again, ridiculous price. You can get all of the Bioshocks. That's Bioshock Infinite, 2 and the original for like 85% off. That's £6 Great British pounds, which is ridiculously priced. You can also go ahead and pick up Bioshock Infinite for £5 or Bioshock 2 for like £2.79. So basically, unless you own the original, like for example, I don't know if I own Bioshock 2 on Steam. I think I might. I can't remember. But I might do in a pack, I'm not sure. Anyway, if I don't, then it kind of is annoying because I'm going to be paying like $2.79 for the damn thing compared to $5.99 for like everything. But still, not really much to say. I think the Bioshock 2 is the weakest out of the franchise, but it's still, its weakest is still better than like a good portion of games. I won't say much about the storyline because I don't want to spoil it. But effectively you are in, well, with Bioshock, you are starting off in Rapture, which of course is a not very healthy mentally city. They've gone crazy with what's going on with the science experiments and so on. The gunplay in all of the Bioshocks is not particularly its strongest point. I do feel that, especially Infinite, the abilities you have, the weapons you have, aren't amazingly balanced, and gunplay can feel a little flat, but mostly because of the powers you get. Some abilities, like I believe it's called Devil's Kiss and Shock Jockey and a couple of others, they're ridiculously overpowered, and they can make a difference between a fight being really easy or really frustrating, at least in my opinion. Anyway, I don't really have any qualms of recommending this pack for the price. It's just go ahead and buy it. Dishonored. There's a crap ton of Dishonored games, rather DLC as well, and it's all rather cheap. I don't have any qualms recommending the Game of the Year edition, which is 66% off, or the base game. Dishonored 2 has just been announced, so now you might as well go ahead and pick it up. It's a first-person action title, but you do have some supernatural abilities. For example, you can teleport and so on. I know I'm doing some crappy jobs of explaining some of these games, but I'm trying to more stick to, is it good? Because you can kind of see by, you know, just doing a bit of Googling what the game's about. What I would personally suggest, pick this one up. It does have some problems, once again, to do with the balancing, and also some problems with mostly decision making, because you do get to be good or bad. I would personally, for the price, buy it. It's really cheap and it's going to give you a good amount of gameplay. Graphics are so-so. Garry's Mod. Do I need to explain Garry's Mod? I mean, Garry's Mod is just like everywhere these days. It's basically a physics sandbox. Here's my 2 cents suggestion. Garry's Mod, I could never play it at lengths of time because I'm someone that would just get bored with it after a while. I would think it was cool for the first 5 minutes and then I'd get bored. Others who love this type of game, if you're interested in, and it's a bad example, but if you like Minecraft, if you like experimenting, messing around with physics, just kind of testing stuff out, then Garry's Mod's for you. Personally, I like doing that in non-gaming instances. I love like science and all that jazz, but I like doing it in my own time, and when I'm gaming I like a storyline, which is another reason I don't really play multiplayer that much, but that's an FYI. You've also, of course, got Five Nights at Freddy's. There's a variety of different ones. I don't think I need to explain Five Nights at Freddy's that much. You're working effectively in a fast food place, and stuffed animals there are not too friendly to you. You basically have to control the cameras and so on. It's basically YouTube fodder. I'm not really a fan of it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not criticizing the developer. It does what it does well, but it's not my thing. Ryse, Son of Rome, 66% off. Alright, here's the deal. This game's got a lot of criticism on both Xbox and PC. My opinion on it is it's not as bad as what people made out. The storyline and the acting is not shabby. The combat is mostly the problem, and it's a bit samey. It's not a particularly lengthy game, and it can have an overabundance of QTEs. But I say all of this in a loving way. The game is not bad. I like it. I'm kind of a whore for Son of Rome. Sorry, for Rome in general. I've got a couple of other soft spots for you know, history, but I think Rome, the Roman Empire, is really awesome. You know, just I think that period of history just is so rich, and it hasn't been pillaged quite so much as other periods in history. That's not to say that it's, you know, not been plundered a bit. I go ahead and pick it up for the price if you're vaguely interested in it. It's not a bad price. Divinity franchise, a crap ton of games here for you. I don't know much about the older ones. I do know the Divine Divinity, which I think I actually got way back in the day, actually, with a graphics card, if memory serves. Beyond Divinity, there's a bucket load of others that I won't mention. They all do fairly well, but the main treat here is Divinity Original Sin, which is currently available for 33% off. That makes it 20 Great British Pounds. It's not the cheapest I've seen it, but it's getting there. I have seen it slightly cheaper for ever so slightly. That's my phone. It's been blowing up because of E3. Sorry about that. I forgot to put it on mute because I'm a twit. I don't have any qualms of recommending Divinity Original Sin. It is an open world RPG. It's kind of in the how can I put it? It's kind of in the realms of Neverwinter Nights. This is a game, and I'll warn you now, it has a crap ton of gameplay. This is not for someone who's just like, I just want to play a game, done. This is for those who like to say, you know what? I want to sit down, I want to put time in, I want to craft a character, I want to go and explore a world. If you are that person, if you like Dragon Age, but in a more pointy-clicky way maybe, if you liked Neverwinter Nights, if you liked old-school RPGs, I'm wasting your time, just go and buy the bloody game. Anyway, we've covered it a little bit on the channel. I'm going to blast through some of the flash sales, blast through them in a rapid manner, mostly focusing on the games that I know of. Dragon Age, don't really need to discuss that anymore. It's Dragon Age, very good price, go ahead. Brothers, insane price, it's 90% off for God's sake. Just buy it. Shadow Warrior franchise, I've not played it, but Amy has told me it's basically the most fun thing you can possibly do. 3D Mark, it's actually really cheap at the moment, it's 80% off. I guess if you're that into benching, you could go ahead and get it, like I've got it, but I'm testing graphics cards and processors and stuff. For the average person, do you need it? Guess maybe you might want it, shrug. Fear Collection is also fairly cheap at the moment. You've also got Ys Origins. I love Fear, I love me Fear, I love me Fear, I love me Fear. Honestly, I love all of them, and I know I shouldn't, but I love the games, and I can't explain why. Ys Origins, absolutely fantastic old-school traditional RPG. It's kind of in the and it's a bad example, but it's just the one that my brain jumps to. Kind of a bit like traditional old-school Zeldas slash Beyond Oasis slash those games. It's a good game. I'd recommend it. Alice Madness Returns, very good title. Also uses Nvidia's physics rather well as also. And also you've got Remember Me by Capcom. Another good game. We've covered that on the channel. We've also covered a couple of the other games on the channel as well. I think that's everything, isn't it? I know I said I was going to go through the Uplay stuff today, but quite frankly, I don't have time because of E3. So I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. And I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.